the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's great, dude. It's one of my favorite places on earth, man. San Antonio. There's something in the air, man. I know. I love it over there. So I'm glad you're enjoying. Do you get to go to Cedar Park or no?
Yeah. No, I still go. I went up to I want to say about 4 or 5 games this year.
Okay, cool.
I was up at the home opener. I went there as a fan, just to get that side of the experience. And it was actually after that game that Michael De Leon had hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, man, I know the work you did with Ticket 760, stuff like that. Do you want to write for us? Cover the Spurs? I'll get you, media passes and stuff like that." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm in." And if you can't tell, Commander's flag behind me. I love professional sports.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something to be said about the development side of it. So I'm not a college guy. I'm really not a college guy. There's way too many teams, way too many players. Different schools are on different levels, but for the most part, as you start to weed it down to the professional side of things, they become more and more talented, more even keeled. And then it's about player acquisition. But I love the development side of it. So the minor league sports are like my favorite. So Commanders football, where you're taking guys from this college, and they're all giving it their all every week because they're fighting for that next opportunity. That is awesome. And so that's one of the appeals to covering the Austin Spurs for Project Spurs, is about, having that opportunity to watch these guys go out there, because you have your Keldons, you have your Lucas, you have your Lonnies, your first round picks out there, and they're almost guaranteed to make it to the next level. So they're already on a pro contract, so technically they're there. But then you've got your other guys. Drew Eubanks, a 2-way contract. Spurs took a flyer on him. 6'9" center coming out of Oregon State. Like, what the hell? So to watch him, develop his game, and he has to work for his opportunity. That's awesome to see. I like, mentorship is a big thing for me. So, and I know we'll dive into the series here, but one of the high I know my analysis was rather critical of the series, but when you look at, situations like Jordan Green and Jeff Ledbetter, and how they're there, to kind of earn their own, but they almost recognize they're no longer going to make it. They might get a flyer on an NBA team. Jeff Ledbetter coming in just as a role player to nail threes, but the dude's like, I think he's 28 years old. If you really haven't made it by this point, it's kind of tough to argue if you ever will. So he relies on, and something that, a potential working story I have, for this league is really looking at these guys and how COVID-19 has impacted their opportunities overseas. Jeff Ledbetter is normally one of those guys. By this point of the season, G League would already be done anyway. So he's playing in Mexico. He's playing in Spain. He's playing in China, whatever. So he's missing out on his paycheck. But those kinds of guys, they're really in Austin, not to really earn a shot with San Antonio. But to mentor these guys, to bring them along, and really show. Because if you have guys like one of my favorite Austin Spurs players, Dedrick Lawson. He wasn't drafted.
He had a great year, man.
He had an awesome year.
He had a great year.
Everything that really should have been expected from a highly touted player coming out of Kansas. He was great when he played at Memphis. I don't know how a guy who averages 24 and 12 in college does not get drafted. But he really flashed and showed what he could do at the next level with us, and I'm really hoping that he earns a shot at the NBA with the Spurs. Maybe he's a 2-way contract next year, because all of our 2-way contracts are clear now. That's one of the things that lots of people don't they kind of overlook is Quindary Weatherspoon. He was only a 1-year, 2-year contract.
Second round,
So he's done. So he's done. So we've got to make a decision as to whether we're going to bring him back at all or try to. Mezie, I understand he's on a full contract, but it's non-guaranteed. None of his money is guaranteed moving forward. So the longer they wait to keep him on the roster, I think he carries maybe like like 50,000 or whatever becomes guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they're going to play these contracts now, but like 50 was due in June.
Yeah.
Coming up, and then if he's on the roster in October, still it's fully guaranteed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a decision to make on him. Drew Eubanks, his contract is clear.
Yeah.
So between him and Quinn, there goes your two-way contracts.
Yeah.
Maybe Dedrick Lawson earns his.
Yeah, you see that's interesting, and that's kind of I wanted to bring it up later, but let's just talk about it now. Mezzi's quote in Growing Grounds, and that could have, I anyone could have took that a few different ways, and I think it did definitely sound a little bit salty. And I think if they're the Spurs, you see a guy like Dedrick Lawson, and you're like, hey, like, this dude is just doing it all. He can hit he shoots threes. He can get you down low. He's smart. He's not a terrible defender, a little slow, but he's okay, And then you got a guy like Drew, and then you got Chimezie also. And Chimezie was the guy who, he didn't get he sounds salty about not getting his shot. Maybe when all the bigs went down, he's just like, man, I don't understand, but I'm gonna put my head down and go to work. Mm-hmm. He did say that too, and that's good. I think in your article you wrote like did the editors of the video of Growing Grounds let it slip? And I started thinking, I was like, man, dude, someone got fired? or was it like the Spurs letting that go? So the message also gets out there that not are we just developing players, but if, like, we don't care about, what you want. We're going to do what's best for you and what's best for the team, and you're going to earn your chance to earn it. And to me, Chimezie played earlier on in the season. I don't think a lot of people remember that. A lot of people just try to focus on, like, okay, when the bigs went down, he didn't really get called up. And then he went nuts in Austin and started averaging 20 games or whatever. Right. Took it personally. But he did get a little bit of run earlier on in the season, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was just like 2 or 3 games, but I think that was his opportunity. You know what I mean? So it's just like you can't just, you got to be ready for him if it's just on my end.
Right. So on Chimezie, I think, yeah, you're right. Throughout the beginning of the season, he was one to receive the majority of the call-ups. Mm-hmm. I don't think Keldon even got called up until maybe some point in mid-December. Luka and Quinn only got theirs after the New Year struck. Yeah. Drew was getting a little bit, but go back to the contract, discussion you and I were having, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A decision needs made on these two guys. Mm-hmm. So Chimezie had his opportunity, and in that same vein, when Chimezie was in San Antonio early on in the year, Drew was in Austin showing what he could do.
Yeah.
So I think they were evaluating them both on both levels, and they just passed each other like trains in the night, where now it was Drew's opportunity now it just so happened that at that time the bigs went down and they needed the big help, in San Antonio, and look at the same opportunity, and arguably Chimezie got more of an opportunity than Drew did, even though Drew was playing in San Antonio. When Drew was playing in San Antonio, that's when the rookies got called up there too. Mm-hmm. So Keldon is no longer, Chimezie is no longer competing with Keldon for ball touches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's getting his real opportunity to shine there. Mm-hmm. I think that what it speaks to is that was the organization's attempt to really evaluate Drew at that point.
Yeah.
Because Mezzi is already signed to the Spurs, so he carries a $3 million commitment for this next year. So they don't even have to sign him. That's money already budgeted. Drew's the one they have to make a decision on. So they really needed to see, okay, what do you look like at the NBA level? How can you help us out? Mm-hmm. But that quote, it sounds like he is salty. Just to read it back, you just got to put your head down and work really. Obviously, you're going to get frustrated at some points. Sometimes you might feel like you're not getting what you deserve or what you're working for, but nobody cares. You just got to keep going, and hopefully it'll pay off. Mm. Ideally, kind of what we've heard in the past is Spurs players don't care. Mm-hmm. You would not even hear a quote where somebody even felt like they could say, sometimes you feel like you're not getting what you deserve.
Yeah.
Because those are the kinds of players where that's like a Kawhi Leonard sentiment, right? man, I'm not getting treated right in this locker room. You know, they're having players only meetings. Tony's coming out and talking about my injury. I'm feeling slighted. This to me sounded like Chimezie feeling slighted.
Yeah.
And that's where I wait. You know, yes, there's some positive in there, which just makes me wonder if the editors overlooked how that quote really sounds, because it sounds like he's disgruntled with how the organization is handling his career.
Yeah, because if you read it, you can be like, oh yeah, he's just saying that, hey man, you got to come in here and get to work and hopefully, you know, good things happen. But when you hear it and you see it, he's like, you know, just, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, I kind of feel for Mezie a little bit. And let me tell you why. Last year, he got an injury at the end, either at the end of the last season or right before Summer League. So he missed Summer League. Right. And I went to that Summer League just as a fan too. And I mean, I was doing my coverage, whatever. And the game against Toronto, I mean, they played in a bunch of games, but the one that I saw was the one against Toronto where Lonnie Walker went off for 32, 24, like in the half and whatnot. And Drew was there. And the thing is, when I was there sitting, I'm like, Drew totally won me over watching him.
Really?
He just totally, I was just all about this guy. The way he communicated, the way he defended, the way he wasn't scared to get in the other guy's face. He got a technical for punching a guy in the nuts in that game, straight up. You can probably go look at the highlights. You see it. He gives him like a little like cheap, one of those. But it's like, hey man, it's Summer League. You gotta, you know, everyone's fighting for themselves out here. But at the same time, man, I saw what he could become. And to me, I always say he's like a poor man's Jakob, and I mean that in no slight at all. He does what he does very well, and it shows in these growing grounds how big of a part of the team he is, personality wise, and just, I mean, he's in the coffee gang crew with the Spurs, you know, when he gets the call up too. So he's a Spurs type player, and he got the Summer League opportunity, right, to shine, and I think he did great with what he did over there in summer. Mezie missed all that, right? And so coming into training camp, I was like, well, okay, you know, like what are the Spurs gonna do? Are they gonna give it to Drew? Because meanwhile, Mezie was over at FIBA games, and we can talk about that. I mean, if you want to use that as a tool to see, okay, how is he developing with the Spurs? He didn't play good like in the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 games. He didn't get that many minutes, I don't think. And then they just kind of started sucking, and then they were like, okay, well, let's let him play. And he balled out. Yeah, and he balled out. Yeah, and he honestly looked like he was like, just give me the ball. He was like, I'll dribble it up, I'll shoot it, I'll dunk it, I'll whatever. He had that nasty poster. You remember that like out of bounds play from the baseline where he just caught it? And, ooh, that was dirty. And so you see, and he did that a few times in San Antonio this year too. I mean, like with the Spurs, he had a few dunks here and there. So he's shown some things, you know, but I feel like circumstantial because of his injury first, then because of his contract maybe, and the whole weighing out Drew, and he got put down here again, and he's like, hey man, I don't want to stay a two-way contract guy. I need run. I need to earn. If it's not going to be here, I need an opportunity, because hey man, I mean, let's think about it for real. He's Nigerian, right? I don't know if he's here on a visa or whatever, so he's going to try to keep, you know, trying to do what he can to get work and to keep improving himself on that kind of mindset. And so I think it's justified for him to feel a little bit slighted, but at the same time, you don't voice it. Like you said, you don't do that. You act professional. You keep your head, like you do what you said you're supposed to do. You know, he needs to take his own advice there a little bit with this growing ground stuff, but I don't hate it. You
know, Mezzi's going to stick around. And maybe the reason he feels slighted is because he is already on a pro contract, right? He's not two-way. He's an actual Spur who has spent the majority of his 2 years in Austin, right? And so he was a draft pick, right? He's a second round draft pick. He earned, you know, whereas Quinn got, you know, a two-way contract. They actually signed Mezie to a real 3-year deal as a second round pick. So he might have felt that his future was a little bit brighter than kind of what it's turned out to be for these first 2 years, and he's really flashed a lot of potential. When you look at both Chimezie and Drew, they're both 6'9", right? To me, Chimezie is the better prospect. because of the athleticism that he brings and the versatility to his game. If you watch Austin games, that's where he seems to really feel comfortable, is in Austin. And I don't know if that's a great thing for a pro prospect, because this is the developmental league. It's the G League, right? So for you to feel really comfortable and be nailing three-pointers, clutch from mid-range, he almost averaged a double-double. I believe, I did a stats rundown this last, just about a week ago, for my latest piece with Project Spurs. And he was there hovering right around a double-double. And then you kind of, just fall to the wayside when you're given your opportunities with San Antonio, but he is the better prospect.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
He's not, maybe, I understand that now, in the NBA, we're calling 6'9" a center.
Yeah.
Because that's a small ball is going really heavy across the league. Jakob, to me, is still that true 5'7".
Yeah.
You can't teach size.
Yeah.
You can teach a player with size, but you can't teach a small guy how to have size. And Drew kind of falls into that one-trick pony.
Yeah.
I love him because he's aggressive. Like you said, he's a team player. He embodies a Spur, right? When we talk about, is he a Spur? Is he not a Spur? He is a Spur. Unfortunately, his game is one-dimensional.
Yeah.
He doesn't really shoot from the mid-range. I did a piece highlighting Drew Eubanks back in February. He has never attempted a three-point shot. In today's NBA, like I'm talking about in 3 years at Oregon State and in 2 years at the G League level, he has never attempted a three-point shot.
Didn't he hit one?
No.
Didn't he hit one here at the end of the season? He shot one. I know. He shot one.
If he put one up after that story went up, but
it definitely probably was. It was definitely in the last 4-6 games of the season.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So then it's very, he might have read my story and but hell dude, I'm getting called out for not shooting threes.
I want to say it was against Charlotte, I think, it was towards the end.
Okay. Cause that story went out, towards the end of February. Obviously basketball got canceled on March 15th or whatever. But yeah, as of the time of that story, he had never shot. I'm talking about 0 attempts.
Yeah. That's what makes it so funny. I think he hit it. That's why I'm saying he's 1 for 1. It's don't shoot anymore, Drew. Don't shoot anymore.
But he has the flip side of that is he has to.
Yeah.
Because that's today's NBA. You have to be able to space the floor. You have to be able to stretch the floor. And if you're already slower than the next guy coming up the floor, you really need to be able to carry the shot, come up late, you get the ball, chuck a three up, and you're good to go. You nail it and you turn around and run back the other way.
Chimezie can do those things.
Chimezie can do those in Austin.
In Austin,
he can do those things. We haven't seen him do it yet with the Spurs. Maybe he's not feeling confident. Whatever it is, I don't know. But yeah, but if you want to talk about quotes, for Chimezie feeling slighted in his opportunity, somebody else who should feel slighted would be Lonnie Walker the fourth, right? Because last year, as a first round, we all think that all Spurs first rounders should feel slighted because here you are, you're showing that you're one of the best 30, 29 coming out this year.
Yeah.
So let me go for it. Let me show you what I can do. And he is relegated to the G League last year, right? And that can feel very slightful. But his quote, I think it's right there at the first episode, man. Yeah. He comes out and he says, everybody wants to play in the big leagues. And you see guys your age playing and everything. So you're going to have your times where you're like, dang, I should be able to play. But this is a different organization. They're looking out for your greater good longevity, and he goes on. That's how Chimezie should be feeling. Everything Lonnie said right there, and I understand, he got his cake, right? He only had to spend a year down there, and he's right in the league. Chimezie came out in that same draft with them.
Yeah.
And here he is looking for his opportunity.
Man, they had a great bond that year one. Man, I really liked what Chimezie did in his first year with Austin. When after his first season, going in, I was really excited about Summer League. That's why I was really unfortunate that he went down, because he had shown in Austin that he can be a prototypical 5 in this NBA. He's athletic enough to stay in front of smaller guys. He can shoot. He can just kind of fit that role and defensively as well, it feels like. But so I really liked what they did together. And it's funny, the Lonnie Walker quote. I'm doing right now, it's like I have never said it, so right now is for the first time I'm gonna reveal what I'm doing next, or whatever, my next film room for Project Spurs. And it's gonna be like a little mini doc. I talked to Joe Garcia about it the other day, but it's gonna be a little mini documentary on Lonnie Walker's second year, right? This season, right? And but before I talk about it, you gotta explain what happened in year 1, right? So episode 1, obviously, that's where we're going. But to me, and not to give too much of it away or whatever, but year 1 for Lonnie was, to me, it wasn't necessarily about his game. I mean, obviously he needed the work on the defense. He needed to put it all together. But it was Austin provided like him the opportunity to build his body, right? Because he had just come off the injury. He had the injury in Miami. It was like, if you're Spurs, those are red flags. You're like, hey, there's an issue here. Let's take care of it now. You know what I mean? And you know what? That means that, yes, you're defaulted to Austin for your first, like, almost whole season, right? Pretty much. He really only got a few ticks in year 1. But I feel like that's what Austin did for Lonnie. You know what I mean? So he always stays humble. That's the one thing I love about all of his interviews. He's always about patience. Patience is a word that comes out of his mouth a lot. You know what I mean? Because he understands. He's bought in. He's completely bought in. Now, Chimezie, who came in the draft with him, I don't think he's all that bought in. I think he wants to be. I don't think it's not that he doesn't want to be. I think he wants to be bought in, but he's hungry. And he's a competitor too, and it's a dilemma.
It really is, But that's one of the challenges of a G League, right? And having those kinds of players. This weekend, there's a organization called Coaches Clinic, and I actually caught wind of this from Spurs Give, which used to be Spurs Give Back. And so they had tweeted out that Landry Fields, who's the general manager of the Austin Spurs.
Did you know that before the series came out?
I did.
Okay, I did. That was a surprise to me. I was like, Landry Fields is our GM. I was like, that's pretty cool. I was like, I like that. Yeah.
I did actually. We brushed in passing when I went to the home opener for the Austin Spurs last year. Props to the ticketing across the organization for the Spurs, because when we called for tickets up at HEB Center at Cedar Park,